Hi, I'm Deirdre McMurdy. Our guest now is Erin Greenfield, Portfolio Manager for the Trimark Global Balanced Fund. Now, since Erin and his colleague Jeff Hyrich took over management of the fund in August 2009, the average annual rate of return for investors has been about 9.56%. Very impressive indeed. We're going to talk to Erin now. And Erin, I know investors are very keen to get an update from you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
What motivated you to become an investor? What attracted you to the sector?
I've really liked business ever since I was a little kid. My father ran his own law firm, and I would always hear him speaking about contracts and customers planning and running his own business. And it just seemed really interesting to me. He had a lot of friends that were entrepreneurs, and I really enjoyed listening to the challenges that they incurred. I loved watching Alex B. Keaton on Family Ties and the movie Wall Street. I used to deliver the Globe and Mail, and I can remember reading all the headlines, and I still vividly remember the '87 crash and delivering that newspaper. So that led me into business school, and I became an accountant, and I've loved investing ever since.
Now, the Trimark Global Balanced Fund has a mandate to go anywhere, balancing stocks and bonds, but this mandate to go anywhere, what does that actually mean, and how is it reflected in the portfolio?
When we say go anywhere, it really means we've got very few constraints, and whenever you take the constraints away from an investor, it increases their chance to outperform. And so what we mean when we say go anywhere is for instance, if stocks are cheap in a particular country like Germany, we can spend our efforts looking at Germany, researching companies in Germany. We don't have to stick to some artificial constraints of having to be in certain geographies. If companies in the healthcare sector are cheap, we can focus our efforts on companies in the healthcare sector. If small companies are cheap, we can focus on small companies as opposed to medium-sized or large-sized companies. So it's that flexibility that we think will help us outperform over the long term.
It's very hard, Erin, I think everyone would agree, to read the direction of interest rates right now. It seems to be a very unsettled area, and for investors, that's a bit of a challenge, I think, as well. How are you balancing the bonds and stocks to reduce risk while maintaining growth in this environment?
Yeah, well, what we're really focused on is buying good companies in the equity side of things. And so we're looking for companies that have good growth prospects, good margins, good returns on capital, and holding them for a long period of time. On the fixed income side of things, interest rates do play a little more of a factor. So the duration of the bond portfolio is quite low. It's less than 3 years. The idea being that if interest rates do rise, you're protected on the downside, and then as the bonds mature over the next 2 to 3 years, you can redeploy those assets into new higher yielding investments.
Now, Microsoft is one of the big names that you hold in the portfolio, and also a U.S. company called WellPoint. Can you describe to investors who own the fund what it is you see in these particular names? What is it about these companies that earns them a spot in your portfolio?
I mean, Microsoft is a company everybody knows, and many people don't like Microsoft. They see it as a bit of a laggard in comparison to other, big names like Apple and Google. But actually, Microsoft has had very impressive growth over the last 5 to 10 years, and they're much more diverse than people think. People typically think of Microsoft as being associated with the consumer products that they know, and they haven't been that successful in the Surface tablets or the Windows Phone. But there's many, many other products that consumers may be not familiar with that they do very well in. They're moving more and more into cloud solutions for big companies, more and more big data centers for companies. They are also moving more and more into a recurring revenue business model, which makes them stickier and makes them more predictable as they offer clients subscription-based software such as Office 365 and Azure. So they're doing really well in other areas that people don't necessarily think about. Xbox is doing great. Servers is doing really well. And as an accountant, I'd say they probably have one of the most impressive set of financial statements in the entire world. So we really like Microsoft. The other one you mentioned was WellPoint. WellPoint's one of the largest health insurers in the United States. Coming with that size, they have excellent economies of scale, so they can charge quite reasonable prices and still make a reasonable rate of return. And they also have one of the best brands in the United States. We may not have heard it here in Canada because we don't use the U.S. system, but down there they use the Blue Cross Blue Shield brand, which is very well known. And over time that should help them steal customers away from their competitors. But generally we see healthcare as a growth industry. As people age, they'll spend more and more on their healthcare. And a health insurer is really just a way to collect a royalty on that healthcare spend as people spend more. So we think it has good growth prospects, very reasonable valuation. We like the management team, and so that's one of the reasons it's one of our top weights.
Erin, it seems that investors are starting to move towards global balanced funds recently. Maybe tell the viewers why they should consider the Trimark Global Balanced Fund. What is it about your fund and how it's managed that you think is a compelling story?
Well, I think it's a very no-nonsense approach. It's business people buying business, very low turnover. So it's a buy and hold strategy. We're just looking to buy good companies and hold them for a long period of time. We're not doing anything complex. We're not flip-flopping strategies. We have very low turnover, and we have the stats to prove it. We've had good demonstrable track record that I think shows that we've done a good job. And generally just, that no-nonsense buy and hold strategy, which is basically how I would want my own retirement savings managed.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Erin. It was great speaking with you.
Thanks.
And viewers, if you want to know a little bit more about the Trimark Global Balanced Fund, speak with your financial advisor.